Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 13th. What's the secret to beautiful begonias? I asked this question to a friend recently who has the most gorgeous begonias every single year. Her answer was simple: fish emulsion. This means that we should be feeding our begonias with fertilizer. And since we love that begonia flower, and they do flower their hearts out for us, that's what makes begonias heavy feeders. Since fish emulsion is a low-intensity total fertilizer, it's perfect for promoting large, healthy, beautiful begonia plants. Just feed them every 3 to 4 weeks and then follow the directions on the label. And remember that most begonias do best with plenty of filtered light, but little or no direct hot sun. So don't fry them. And at the same time, you've got to be careful because water and begonias don't play nice together in the sense that begonias can rot pretty quickly. They need a soil that's going to drain fast. They need to be in pots like terracotta that can breathe. So think about adding perlite or leaf mold to your soil mix, making it very coarse, something quick draining, to add more air pockets to the soil. And then don't forget that those air pockets mean that you need to water more frequently, especially during warm weather. So don't drown them, but water more frequently and get them in soil with lots of perlite. Now, one thing you can also do with your begonias is mist them. They like humidity, but too much of that can invite fungus or powdery mildew, so keep an eye on them. And there you go, your quick 101 guide to beautiful begonias. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of Caspar Wistar the Younger, who was born on this day in 1761. His grandfather was also Caspar Wistar, so the Younger distinction helps people tell them apart. Wistar was a professor of anatomy at the University of Pennsylvania. The botanist Thomas Nuttall named the genus Wisteria in his honor. Some people say Wistaria to reflect the proper spelling of Wistar's last name. Either is fine, because guess what? The misspelling is preserved for all time under the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. It's like one of my kids' birth certificates. It can be amended, but the original is wrong, and it will be until the end of time, much to my dismay. Wistar had some pretty impressive friends. His best friend was probably Thomas Jefferson, and his most famous botany friend was probably Alexander von Humboldt. Wistar died of a heart ailment unexpectedly in January of 1818. His final utterance was, "I wish well to all mankind." During his life, every Sunday night, Wistar would hold a salon, basically an open house, at his home on the corner of Fourth and Locust Street. His friends would stop by, along with any member of academia or the elite or high society, along with other accomplished people who happened to be in Philadelphia that evening. They all knew that Wistar's house was the place to go to meet with the best minds of the day. When Wistar died, his friends continued holding Wistar parties for a core group of about 50 members. They would each take turns hosting, and they kept the tradition going for another 40 years. And today is the birthday of the British author Roald Dahl, who was born on this day in 1916. Today, his birthday is celebrated all over the world as Roald Dahl Day. Dahl was an avid gardener. In fact, his garden shed doubled as his writing nook, where he wrote many books, including Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. As romantic a notion as this sounds to a gardener's ears, it was also a pragmatic decision on the part of Dahl's wife. Dahl chain-smoked as he wrote, and the garden shed kept the smoke out of the house. For Dahl's part, he loved the idea of using the garden shed as a place to write, especially after seeing the little writing hut used by the author Dylan Thomas. Gardeners with a passion for roses will no doubt praise the Roald Dahl Rose, which honored Dahl's love of gardening. It's an absolutely stunning English shrub rose that was bred by the late David Austin. It's got a very blousy habit and scrumptious peach blooms that just go non-stop. They have a lovely fragrance as well, and not many thorns, so that's a bonus. Dahl's diaries have marvelous entries about his garden, and he was often inspired by his garden, which you can ascertain when you read his work. Here are some examples. From Matilda. I liked the secret garden best of all. It was full of mystery. Here's one from My Year. There is just one small, bright spark shining through the gloom in my January garden. The first snowdrops are in flower. And from the BFG. But Mr. Tibbs didn't hesitate for long. Tell the head gardener, he whispered, that I require immediately a brand new, unused garden fork and also a spade. And for a knife, we shall use the great sword hanging on the wall in the morning room. But clean the sword well first. It was last used to cut off the head of King Charles I, and there may still be a little dried blood on the blade. And finally, here's this one that we'll use to toast Roald Dahl on Roald Dahl Day. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? I live with my brat in a high-rise flat, so how in the world would I know? In Unearthed Words, all week long, the Daily Gardener has been sharing quotes from the author Beverley Nichols, who was born on Monday of this week in 1898. A prolific writer, Nichols is best remembered for his gardening books. Today I'm featuring excerpts from his book called 40 Favorite Flowers. It's exactly as described. Nichols sharing his top selections, the flowers he loved most in his garden, which he described this way. A great deal of weeping goes on in my garden, but it is a happy sort of weeping, for all this bending of branches and bowing of heads is simply due to the fact that so much beauty is displayed on so small a stage. Nichols arranged this book simply. He used alphabetical order. Then he just shared some of his favorites. Here are some excerpts for you. On Algerian Iris. One of my grandfathers died of a clump of Iris stylosa. It enticed him from a sickbed on an angry evening in January, luring him through the snowdrifts with its blue and silver flames. He died of a double pneumonia a few days later. It was probably worth it. And here's his thoughts on the magnolia. I must confess that for me, the flower of the magnolia is most beautiful when life has almost ebbed from it. These are the twilight hours, when the petals flag and falter, when their immaculate ivory texture dims, when they glow with a ghostly radiance that seems to come from another world. Here's the regal lily. The regal lilies do indeed praise the Lord. Some of my own last summer were so exultant that they praised him through no less than 30 snow-white trumpets on a single stem, and even the most accomplished angel could not do much better than that. Finally, in 40 Favorite Flowers, Nichols offers some sweeping thoughts that will undoubtedly strike a chord. One of the many reasons why gardens are increasingly precious to us in this day and age is that they help us to escape from the tyranny of speed. Our skies are streaked with jets. Our roads have turned to racetracks. And in the cities, the crowds rush to and fro as though the devil were at their heels. But as soon as we open the garden gate, time seems almost to stand still, slowing down to the gentle ticking of the clock of the universe. Today's book recommendation is English Cottage Gardening by Margaret Hensel. This book is a wonder for anyone who loves the intimacy of the English cottage garden and who endeavors to capture the feel of that for their own garden space. Hensel has come up with core elements from 10 cottage gardens, 8 in England and 2 in the United States. Once you master those elements, you are well on your way to having a cottage garden of your own. Hensel explains each element and how to achieve it. The last part of this book is also especially helpful. It reviews 76 selected cottage-style plants and how to use them to create a cottage garden. The book is chock full of information and photos. By the way, Hensel is an exceptional photographer in her own right, which makes her photographs of the gardens and plants extra meaningful. So overall, there's tons of information and inspiration for gardeners looking to create their own cozy cottage garden. Here's today's garden chore. Just because it's September doesn't mean you can't divide bearded iris, because you can. And I recently just did this myself. If you have older clumps of irises or iris out of place, it's a great time to divide them and move them. Be sure to remove any bad parts of the rhizomes and then plant them high. I like to nestle mine on top of the soil, and then I stake them in instead of burying them or digging them in. To each his own, but no matter what, do not bury them deep. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1843, the New England farmer out of Boston published this little article about toads. Never destroy the toad. In the season of bugs and flies, a toad will do more toward the preservation of a garden than a man. And all that he requires at your hands for this valuable assistance is the freedom of your garden walks and beds and the paltry shelter of a chip or turf. He meddles with no one's business but his own, constantly avoiding company and intent only on extirpating those voracious insects by whose jaws the beauty of the garden is so frequently laid low. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great weekend in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday.